This show will contain spoilers for the entire HBO Game of Thrones television show, as well as hints Rashawn has heard while co-hosting the final season of Unspoiled Game of Thrones and while scouring message boards. Natasha will not remind Rashawn of show spoilers she has forgotten, but if Rashawn asks a direct question about a show plot point, Natasha will answer it. If you are a completely unspoiled show viewer or reader, proceed at your own risk. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Some Spoiled, covering A Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV. In this episode, we are going to be discussing chapters 12, 13, and 14, Eddard, Tyrion, and Catelyn. In these chapters, Eddard and Robert have a little chat, Robert gets a little heated, Tyrion gets a little chilled, and Catelyn gets a little cut. Welcome to Some Spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So yeah, I recorded the little blurb about spoilers, and that is
okay. Good.
That is at the front of the episodes now. I have to remember to do that.
Okay.
And also, I should probably mention on the show, I put it in the show notes, but Metronome or Metrogenome, I'm not sure how you say it, is the creator of the theme song that I've been using, that like dubstep remix of the...
Oh, I remember that.
So, and this creator is like on YouTube, and they haven't been back on since they posted that like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. So I don't know what their deal is, but they have a link for anybody to download the song if they want. So you can go and find it there using that YouTube link that I have posted in the show notes if you would like to save the song for yourself. So
Fun.
So what did you think?
I never think to look at show notes.
Yeah, I mean,
people always
a lot of
say,
people don't.
I listen to a couple of different podcasts, and the one I'm listening to, the official Lovecraft Country, they put a lot of content in show notes because there's just so much going on in the show itself, mm-hmm. And I always go, oh, I'm going to check that shit out, and then you know what I do? It is something other than checking that shit out every time. These chapters, guys, there are no numbered chapters, and that is really getting under my skin.
Okay, look, that's not true, but this somehow makes it worse. There are numbered chapters if you're looking on the Kindle on your phone.
No, I don't. I have the audio and the heart in the actual paperback.
Yeah, so the audiobook, it's by name.
Yes.
The paper book, it's by name. The Kindle
yes.
version, it's by number.
It
doesn't
ludicrous.
make any sense.
Why is there no consistency in the world? This is why everything is falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
We're just doing whatever we want with no repercussions, no consequences.
So forgive me, guys, if putting the numbers of the chapters isn't super helpful in the titles, but I was willing to put the name in of the chapter into the episode title before, when I was only covering one chapter per episode. But now it would make the title way too long, and you wouldn't even be able to read the whole thing anyway.
And because each name is used over and over again, ultimately that's just going to be more confusing.
It's not super helpful, yeah.
So I find myself constantly being like, wait, which chapters do I need to read this week? Mm-hmm. You know, and where did we stop? And just having to go back and read the last few of what I believe is the last chapter we read to make sure I'm reading the right next 3.
Yep.
But it is a sacrifice I am willing to make because I love you listeners so much. And I'm willing to put this burden on my already heavily burdened shoulders.
I'm really glad, too, that you're running into this, because it's one of those small annoyances that you don't notice until you're in the midst of the thing. And I run into it a ton with Spoil Me. Like, Spoil Me, people are commissioning me to cover different books that they choose. And depending on how old the book is, seems to be a major factor, and how popular it is. There are so many ways in which navigating how many pages to cover or how many chapters to cover is made difficult. And it will be things like that where there's no chapter numbers. It will be things like if you've as an author, if they upload a file that has like the quote Kindle book page numbers, it's like 2,000 pages. And so then you have to do some math and divide the Kindle pages by the paper book pages and figure out.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare with certain books. And there was a series that it seems like the newer books in the series, they have reverted to the thing that I'm used to. But the first 5 were, I had to have somebody do a breakdown and email me what pages to stop at because I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, yeah. I run into that sometimes with some of the Dresden books that I have on Kindle, where they are, especially the anthologies, which is what I only have on Kindle. So I like Side Jobs and Briefcases.
Yeah.
And those are, because they're like sort of standalone stories, they each have a title. But as far as like opening the book and seeing like chapters and everything, you're just like, okay,
yeah,
I guess we don't need those.
And sometimes the Kindle pages will include like the foreword and the afterword and the glossary, so that'll fuck your whole like theory up when you try and do it like simple division. So anyway, I appreciate that somebody else has to see my pain for what it is and validate me. So
yeah, these chapters really good. I felt a little called out because I had spent the last episode sharing with you all my opinion that Ned Stark was kind of like not being held responsible for the choices he made as far as keeping the secret and lying about Jon's parents. And what do we get immediately is a chapter full of Ned Stark feeling very, very
responsible,
heavy, and responsible. We get a chapter where we see that he does not think any of this is a laughing matter. And I think some of the way that he rebuked Robert was very much like, this is like a deeply shameful moment in my life, and I don't have any desire to discuss it with you. But also, I feel like he's using that as a way to keep anybody from asking him any real questions.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think, I think at first when I read it, my impression was that he is so torn up about this, he can't even talk about it. But because I am a middle-aged black woman, I also have run into people who will use something like this as a way to make sure that you just stop talking about the thing. Yep. And I feel like he's using part of that as a way to just shut this conversation down. So I felt a little kind of like I was both simultaneously like vindicated, but also like, oh, I feel bad for talking so much shit about him because look how upset he is. He's clearly not gotten off like scot-free and has been carrying this. The idea, and you know what else I thought about too after we got done talking last time is because you were trying to explain to me this. The alignment chart and how Ned is like lawful good, I think was your determination. Oh fuck! I almost lost my point. That he is someone who takes like honor and duty so seriously but has allowed the world to think he did something very dishonorable. Mm-hmm. When that's the most important thing to him, is something I hadn't taken a moment to consider. You know, it's like, you know, that kind of common trope you see where, like, somebody the good guy lets everyone think he's really a bad guy, you know, because he is holding on and protecting some kind of kernel of truth somewhere. Yeah. And he just sort of suffers the indignity of being talked about, like he did this terrible thing that he didn't actually do. And I am willing to concede that is a very particular type of sort of shameful, or at least like pride wounding situation to be in. But I think having your pride ruined, or your pride insulted, or your name dishonored, are all like things that you have to carry that aren't pleasant. But I don't think they're equal to the kind of pain that, say, Catelyn is carrying, or the type of pain that Jon is carrying, you know?
I would agree with that, I think, in principle. It is something, though, that I have mentioned, especially in context of shows like Veronica Mars, in which Veronica has to, like, pretend to be really clueless about certain things so that somebody will sort of, like, trip up and explain something to her, and she has to pretend to be an idiot for a period of time. And I've often said how I don't think, as prideful as I am, that I could manage to shelve my pride, even for the sake of an investigation about a thing. Right. So him letting everybody think this untrue thing, especially, like, the conversation that he has with Robert. Robert is basically like, well, even the best among us isn't perfect. And is sort of using this as, like, to make himself feel better about what a piece of shit he is in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, he says something to the effect of, that girl must have really been something if she got you to fuck her, you know? And Robert... Because then Eddard is like, well, I was married and Catelyn was pregnant with my first child, and I did this, you know, this terrible dishonoring of her and myself. And Robert is just like, you just fucked a girl. Like, it's not the end of the world. So you got some girl, not some girl. And Robert also wants to, like, do this, back in the day, the good old days, you know, our life was so free and we were unfettered by responsibility, you know? Because the first thing Robert's talking about is how, you know, God, I wish I could just ride off and leave all my cares and woes behind me. You know, and he's, like, joking with Ned, like, join me, you know, we'll just run off and be two knights on the King's Road, you know? Banging chicks and starting fights, you know?
Well, how is this guy your best friend, Ned? How did this happen? And
Robert kind of says, low key is just like, you have never been any fun. You've always been an insufferable fucking moral prick. And it's almost like Robert is wondering, how are we friends? Like, why am I friends with you? So yeah, he's talking about, what's her name? You know, that girl you knocked up. She must have been a piece of ass. And Ned is just like, no. And no.
I'll tell you what we're not going to do.
Right?
Talk about the sex that I had 15 years ago. Because he is kind of trying to be like, so, how she must have been good, right? Like, dude, chill. No.
And when Ned pushes back and is like, you know, that this isn't like a good memory for me, even though no, it's funny because as the readers of the book, we don't know yet.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's so funny because, you know, obviously you guys know I watched the show and I'm spoiled on a lot of the big plot points. I forget that if I'm reading this unspoiled, I don't know that it's not true about Ned, right? So I'm reading this and I am thinking to myself, I imagine I would be thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is going on? And why won't he talk? You know what I do remember? I remember from the first season, I don't know which episode, but very early on, before they all left Winterfell, maybe it was on the ride out to the execution, but whatever it was, that moment when Jon asked Ned about his parentage, right? Mm-hmm. He asked about his mom, and Ned promises to tell him about it one day or whatever. I can remember watching that, not having any idea what was going on, and being like, what the fuck is the point of not telling him who his mother is? Like, why wouldn't you tell him that? Mm-hmm. And being really, really perplexed and not obviously there's no way to know, but really being like, so your mom was just a woman, she wasn't from a great house or anything, but like, why can't you know who she was? Mm-hmm. So, all that to say, circling back to this moment with him and Robert, it sort of feels the same way again. Like, Ned just shuts down. Yeah. And you're just kind of like, why? Mm-hmm. You know, and in this chapter, Ned doesn't give any kind of inkling as to why he's so unwilling to talk about it. He just says the whole thing about his honor and everything, and it wasn't like his best moment. Mm-hmm. But that is not really I feel like a legitimate real world explanation.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah.
But so yeah, Robert has dragged him out on this hunt, and they've gone, not a hunt, but I guess a ride. And they've gone way out. Just way out. Mm-hmm. To get away from prying ears and eyes. Yeah. And, really what's happening is Robert wants to share the news about Daenerys getting married.
Yeah, what did you think about this conversation?
I forgot completely that we find out about that news makes it to Westeros that fast. Mm-hmm. And so this moment where he's talking about basically lamenting that he didn't kill her and her brother when he had a chance, when they were easier to kill, yeah. And kind of just regretting that. And Ned is like, I don't want to say shocked, but he is dismayed by his friend being willing to kill children. Mm-hmm. And we find out that had been a huge problem at the end of the uprising, because I guess it was the Lannisters bring him the bodies of the 2 Targaryen children. Yeah. And Ned at the time was like, this is fucking unacceptable. Yeah. You know? And Robert was like, I don't see nothing but some fucking dragon spawn, which was rude.
Right?
Rude dragon spawn.
Yeah, I had forgotten how, because like I said something about how much Robert hates the Targaryens. And I completely forgot how that isn't really the same in the show, or if it is, it's not as memorable as I thought it was. Mm. Because when I said that to you, you were like, well, you know, he's just worried about his throne. And like, I realized once we listened to this part that this is when it really becomes clear how much he hates them. And
yeah, he hates that whole family line. Yeah, the whole line. Mm-hmm. And, because I had been saying, well, you know, it's very common for people who, you know, like in The Godfather, you know, mm-hmm. the whole plot point of how Corleone leaves Italy because his father had been murdered, and then his mother went for revenge and she got murdered, and he had said you have to kill all the children because they'll just keep coming back for revenge. Yep. And I thought that's what Robert was kind of talking about, you know, that was his primary motivation, was worrying about them coming back to take the throne. But he legit has a real hatred for that entire family. Mm-hmm. And he, I think, tries to play it like, oh, I'm just worried. It's a political decision, you know, but it's not. He has some real beef.
Yeah, he does.
And so they're talking about whether or not Daenerys could ever even be a threat. And Ned is just like, them folks don't get on boats. They don't cross the sea. Why are you even tripping?
Yep. Yeah.
And
at the time, it sounds like, and it's like, really, I feel like I would think the same way as Ned. We know that the Dothraki have agreed to cross for some reason, but we don't have any sort of plan, and it does not feel like they are going to hold up their end of things the way that Viserys wants them to.
Right.
So even while Viserys is plotting, and Ned is being like, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that," a big part of me was like, "No, he really doesn't. I don't see it."
I'm curious. I was also taken aback at how, the Varys shade we get.
Oh, right.
There's because it's not a lot, but there's a line where Ned is like, Varys is the master of whispers, and he had served the king before him. And what does he say? Oh, the news comes. Ned wants to know, like, well, how did we get this information? Mm-hmm. And we find out that Jorah, who is sort of in camp with Daenerys and all of them, is a spy.
Yeah.
And Ned does not hold that position with any sort of respect.
No.
Like, he's just like, oh, so he's a fucking slaver and a spy? Terrible. He's trash.
Yep.
Ned wants to cancel Jorah Mormont.
He's
canceled.
How you and I were both just like, I can't with this guy. After watching the show, and Ned is already there, and he hasn't even watched the show. He doesn't know what happened. But he's already just like, fuck that guy. You know what?
Oh my god, it's so true though.
I knew he wasn't shit, and here he is being not shit. And
just the way I expected.
And it's like one of those like, well, but he's spying for the good side. Why? Because he just wants to come home after he fucked up.
Right. Yeah. He is, and the thing with Ned, obvious, is that these two choices that Mormont has made to engage in behaviors are like completely without honor. Mm-hmm. Slaving and spying. And he doesn't much care for Varys because Varys occupies a space of like spying and manipulation and like doing things dirty and underhanded.
Right.
And there's no honor in that either. Ned doesn't seem to be able to, and I think this comes back to what you were trying to explain to me about lawful good. Ned doesn't seem to be able to appreciate that something without honor can have value. Mm-hmm. Right? Which this is not a judgment on my part of this character of saying this is good or bad. It's just sort of an observation. So, like, it's like when we think about the things that need to happen and need to be done for all of us to live our lives the way we have grown accustomed to living them, right? Mm-hmm. What's that expression? Oh, nobody wants to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
I think, it's kind of like that. Like, Varys provides a valuable, necessary function, mm-hmm. right? That the running of the kingdom really depends on.
Right.
But it's so unseemly, that, like, Ned is kind of grossed out by it, mm-hmm. But you need a Varys, and we do this weird thing where we like to like pretend like we are above it and untouched by it. But somebody's got to be out there grinding the shit up if you want to have sausage with breakfast. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, this kind of ties in with a conversation that we had about Harry Dresden versus Michael Carpenter. And the fact that Michael Carpenter is spared having to make some of the choices that Harry is because of, like, who tells him what to do. And mm-hmm. one could look at the two of them and feel like Harry is not as good and pure a person as Michael, but in my opinion, part of the fact that he chooses to take that on himself when he knows he's going to have to carry that makes him more noble.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to look at it, you know. I mean, if we have the the confidence, and some of us do, you know, you see them people out there wilding, not wearing masks and shit. If we are so certain that what we are doing is on the right side, you know, we will feel very comfortable being very rigid about it because we're so sure what we're doing is right.
Right.
If you don't ever have to make a choice to do something that might be disruptive or destructive to yourself personally, but better for the greater good, you know, those become the choices that are not as easy to make.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if my boss was God and I was Michael Carpenter, I would not have any hesitation about anything I was doing.
Correct.
Because I would be so sure that I am doing the right thing. And you don't have to make those choices like Harry Dresden does, you know. You don't ever have to pick between, like, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Because you only have to, you know what I mean?
Yep, definitely. Yeah, so all that to say that I understand, like, Ned's feeling that there's right and wrong in a general sense, but the older I get, the more I'm just like, man, you gotta get with the real world. Like, this is just not the way things operate. It's frustrating in this way that I feel like is very relevant today.
Yeah, I remember when the show anyway, when Ned gets to King's Landing, there is this feeling that he is operating under a different set of rules than everyone else. Like that he is playing a different game than everyone else is playing. I'm excited to get to King's Landing in the book because from what I understand, some of the characterizations are very different, and that Cersei kind of exists as a very different type of character in the books than she is on the show. But I always think about that moment on the show where she's like, you play or you die or whatever.
Right. Or you win or you die.
You win or you die. And for me anyway, that was a moment of being like, oh, he is a little bit out of his depth here. He is operating as if everybody is as honorable as he is, and everybody is held to the same standards and like code of conduct, you know. And because they're not all.
They
you know,
sure aren't.
And it feels like you said a lot of that is what is happening with us today is we are feeling like we can't understand why people are doing the things they're doing or saying the things they're saying because we think we're all operating under the same, you know, assumptions and knowledge and whatever.
We have
and it
to
turns
appeal
out
to their sense of decency about appointing a new justice.
Yeah, but like your decency.
Right.
You know, like as if that's a thing that, you know, you're assuming that they have any of that. So, yeah, I feel like the thing with Ned is a really good example of people not being fully aware, not reading the room, you know, not understanding what they're actually up against. And this moment that he has with Robert about, because we find out that the thing with the Targaryen kids was such a huge fight between the two of them that when Ned goes off to fight, and I guess he ends up at the Tower of Joy or whatever it's called, this is happening after Robert has kind of won in King's Landing, I guess.
Yes.
So they were so mad at each other that they didn't reconcile until, I guess, fucking Ned had to come back and tell him that his sister had died.
Yeah.
So this was a huge kind of a problem. Them being opposed about what was the moral right thing to do, whether it was okay to kill these children, which Ned is like, there's just absolutely no excuse for that. And Robert being like, look, I'm trying to like win a war and depose a king, and you know sometimes you got to kill some babies.
Yep.
And I don't even feel bad about it, and you're not going to make me feel bad about it.
And like whether or not Viserys does come across the water with the Dothraki. They are out there plotting to come across. So it's clear that Robert's fears around that are founded in something that's true.
Yeah, he's not just, making shit up to be making shit up, I like, too, that there's absolutely no concern about Daenerys. Even though the news is that she wed, the cow, they are just immediately thinking about what that means as far as Viserys goes, and who is actually the threat.
Yeah.
Just as someone who's seen the show, I'm just like, oh, y'all didn't even see that shit coming, which is fun.
It is fun. I really do enjoy how she's just a non-person in a lot of ways because of being a woman, and it's
Yep. So that's a nice little tidbit. So, what else did they talk about? Whether or not they're going to kill the kids, whether or not she's like a real, a threat of them coming across the sea. And I think that's mostly it for them too, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, because they don't really get into coming to King's Landing and all that stuff. That's already been talked about and it, kind of been settled. So
it ends with let's ride. You used to know how. I want to feel the wind in my hair again. He kicked his horse back into motion and galloped off over the barrow. For a moment, Ned did not follow. He had run out of words, and he was filled with a vast sense of helplessness. Not for the first time, he wondered what he was doing here and why he had come. He was no Jon Arryn. To curb the wildness of his king and teach him wisdom, Robert would do what he pleased, as he always had, and nothing Ned could say or do would change that. He belonged in Winterfell, with Catelyn in her grief and with Bran. A man could not always be where he belonged, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you read that. So, they are already on the trip south, I think, which I kind of missed. Because when I was reading it, it says that they came and got him out of his tent. And I was just like, what? Out of his tent? But yeah, the caravan is already kind of on the road.
Yeah.
And that last paragraph, you just want to scream, turn your horse around and go home. Just go home, Ned. Fuck it. Just go home.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I had been reading this, again, unspoiled, if I would have felt in my heart that was wondered, the chapter ends, would I have been like, oh, I wonder if he'll go home,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that people experience. I feel like at this point, you understand that he is going to go south, and there's just nothing that can be done about it at this point.
Yeah, I personally was so sure the first time I read this that Ned was feeling like, why am I here? I need to go home. And I was like, no, King's Landing needs a man like you, Ned. That was my take. Because I was still a sweet summer child who thought that this was a book where heroes win.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too, right? What we're getting in these first chapters feels very familiar to us. If to any of us that's read any kind of fantasy over the years, you feel like, oh, this world is oddly familiar to me. I think I know this man, this lord, and his children, and his wife, and you know what I mean. This king that we find out they have been in great battle together, and they got rid of an unjust sort of psychopathic leader. And it all feels like, oh, yeah, I get what the story is going to be.
Right.
And we know now that, nah, that is not what you're getting here. And I remember when you and I first met, and we had gone out for drinks one night, and you were telling me about the show and the books mainly. I was already watching the show. And one of the things that you liked that you said you liked the most about it was that it was not, there were not clearly defined good and evil, that there was so much gray in the book, and there wasn't heroes in the way that we had become accustomed to finding in our stories. I don't know if the show really held up that end of the bargain.
I would go with no.
I feel like they started to lean very heavily into who's good and who's bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm looking forward to reading in the stories and having and experiencing some of that ambiguity and kind of like as a reader going, oh, do I like this character? I mean, I thought she was supposed to be the good guy, you know, but she's doing some shit right now that I just cannot co-sign.
Yeah, this is, I think when I say, like, it's not clearly defined, it's partially due to the fact that it's very elastic depending on what's happening with that character. Certain characters that you feel like you've gotten a handle on the fact that they are basically decent in this and that way will turn around and do something that you're like, what are you doing? That's so fucked up. And then there'll be people who you have grown to despise, and they're suddenly like having standards on a thing, and you're just so confused by that. So yeah, it goes all over the place.
So the next chapter is the Tyrion chapter, and he is on his way to the wall, and it's rough going.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, y'all, not an easy trip to make. And I feel like maybe he was thinking to himself, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
like,
and
this was poorly thought out plan.
Benjen is just, when he says he's going, he's just like, "Are you?" Oh.
Yeah, he is not like, they are not excited for his company. They also are kind of being like, basically, you can't keep up and we can't afford to be slow because of your ass.
Yes.
You know, which is like a little bit ableist, which I think we're going to just get a lot of in this book for a reason. This is not a call out to say that, you know, the books are ableist. I'm just saying I think we're going to experience much more of that than we ever did in the show, I feel like. Of like how people actually treat him and what their expectations of him are.
Yep.
I think we're going to, and I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm aware that it's part of the story that's being told, so I'm trying to shore myself up for those moments. But yeah, there's just like, this fucking guy. This asshole.
Yeah, he doesn't like Lannisters in the same way that Ned doesn't. So the fact that one is going to be coming with them, just, it's very irritating, obviously.
Right.
And then the fact that he's disabled and maybe can't keep up is a pain in the ass.
And that he invited himself, also. Yeah. Super important. You know, that he just announced that he was fucking coming, and it doesn't seem like he needed anybody's permission, and nobody was in a position to tell him, no, you can't ride with us, which I thought was really weird, because why couldn't they say no? And I guess we're supposed to believe because his social standing is what makes it so that they can't refuse him.
Yeah.
Which, come on, y'all. Really? Like, that makes me feel like, and this is probably very true, because this is what it is. It means that anybody in a higher social order than you is, like, technically your boss.
Yes.
And can just tell you to do shit, and you have to do.
Correct.
Like, I'm trying to imagine, say I was at Walmart, and somebody walked up to me and was just like, you have to give me the stuff in your cart, because I belong to this social caste. And I have to just be like, okay. And there's just nothing you can say to that. And when you think about that, when I think about that type of setup, I tend to think of it in a lens that I'm used to, which is basically like Western history and United States history. And my impulse is to liken it to like slavery or Jim Crow, you know?
Right.
But it actually is very different than that, I think. Because it's not just that Tyrion gets to be the boss because he's, you know, of noble birth, but that, like, because Benjen is also of noble birth.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like it matters.
No, the Lannisters are like part of the royal family now.
Does that impact Tyrion, though? Does he get, like...
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently.
I didn't care for it. That's all I'm going to say. You know, he can just be like, yeah, I'm coming, and everybody has to, like, grudgingly accept it. And that no one can be like, yeah, you are not welcome to join our party. You can come to the wall if you want, but you can't come with us. But I guess that's just the way this world works. And that is so, I don't think it's supposed to be as upsetting as it was. You know, I don't think this is supposed to be a major plot point that even deserves me talking about it as much as I have. But there's just something about it that someone, you know, who is not the boss of you gets to be the boss of you.
Yeah. That's like, there's so much that I cover for the show that has this sort of societal structure in it. And it is an odd thing when you really step back and realize, like, how true it still is in so many areas. Like, it manifests itself in different ways, but it's always sort of, it depends on where you're, social standing at a school with the students, the hierarchy at work with who's a supervisor, and they'll be able to say and do shit that you can't believe they can get away with, but nobody's going to call them on it. And similarly, you know, our politics. People are doing shit that we can't believe, and it's just, well, who's going to do anything? Fucking nobody. Yeah. So guess what, you know?
I think that, like I said for a second ago, that I felt like the way the power works in this scene and larger in the book itself, in the series, was different than, like, slavery or Jim Crow, but there is a bit that feels similar to me in the sense that for a long time in this country, white people, regardless of their status, were the de facto bosses of all black people. You know, so you know, you could be whatever you were in the black community if you're talking post-slavery, and some yokel could just come up to you and be like, "Give me your seat," and you would have to get up and give them your seat, right? So that has existed for us, but I think what's throwing me off about this is that I don't know what's throwing me off about this. Just, I'm not sure. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I don't know. I think because I missed in the show, even though I think it's not their fault, I missed it, how important it is who you belong to. You know? I think that I, like, after a while, started to take it for granted, because so many of our characters in the show were exceeding their particular roles. Yeah. And doing things that you didn't think that they would ever be doing. So after a while, it started to feel like this very hyper-regimented hierarchy had just been upset in so many different ways that it was almost like it didn't exist anymore. You know, anybody could do anything. Jon could become fucking the king of the North, and, you know, whatever, like, you just do whatever the fuck. So to come back to the book and be at the beginning when it was a much, much more rigid system, it just is, like, surprising to me. I'm just like, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah, I think that also in the books in the books in general, as compared to the show is interested in doing things that are entertaining. You know, they want things to work out a certain way so that they can show something particular on screen. And the books, that isn't really the kind of factor. So it is the rigidity of the social mores and structure of everything is much more upheld in the book than in the show, even. Because he isn't as concerned with... It's sort of like what you and I were talking about earlier with, like, Sweet Valley High. And these 16-year-old girls are just somehow, like, out in the world, like,
solving crime.
Yeah, and, you know, questioning people about crimes, and those people are answering them like they're not a fucking child. And especially TV shows will do shit like that. And although Sweet Valley High is books, but they're like the TV of books.
It is so true, y'all. They are the TV of books.
So, like, I think that the show was just much more willing to sort of cheapen that sort of thing in order to get done whatever they wanted for the plot. And the books, he sticks to things a lot more. He is much more interested in making sure that they, because that's, I think, part of what makes things interesting is looking at what a character can accomplish from within the confines of what's expected or allowed.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't all get to do everything. And so what do you do from with the tools you've got?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well because, again, by the end of the show, it was really, you could just do or become whatever. Mm-hmm. There were no constraints on anyone by the time the thing was over. And it's not that I didn't enjoy these characters growing and evolving into different things than what you thought they would at the beginning, but there was also a sense of there were no rules in this world. Mm-hmm. And there are always rules. Yes. I'm not saying that we are never able to break them, but they always exist. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Tyrion is invited himself on this adventure, and nobody really cares. And he is not helpful when it comes to things like setting up or breaking down camp. So he just gets his wine and gets a book and gets out of the way. And let me tell you something about me. Hard same. I am not the friend that, like, you ask to come over to help plan stuff, get ready for stuff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm not helpful.
This is why Rashawn isn't my maid of honor, everybody. Because it's just not her area.
It is just not my area. And y'all, I do not feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. I know what I bring to the table and what I don't bring to the table. I am just going to get in your fucking way. To the point where you are just going to start thinking, oh my God, can she just get the fuck out of the way? So I just get myself out the way.
It makes me think of a tweet I saw recently where somebody tweeted, like, cooking a meal together is the most intimate thing a couple could do. And somebody replied with, they better stay the fuck up at my kitchen.
Listen, when I go to my in-laws, right, I always make a cursory sort of, you need any help? They all know they don't need any help from me. So I will literally just be in the kitchen at the table, making conversation. I might have a glass of wine while people are doing, like, more, like, getting shit together kind of way. Mm-hmm. And I have to say again, I don't feel bad about it.
This is like me at Owen's grandma's. I say, do you need any help? And then I cook half the meal.
See?
That's how it is for me. It's different.
I'm not helping you with that. I'll help with, like, I will do the barest shit. Like, I think the last thing I helped with in the kitchen was, we had fresh corn, so we were husking the corn, and I could do that.
Oh, God.
But otherwise, that's not my strength. So when he just gets out of the way, I appreciated it. I appreciated the self-awareness. I appreciated that he doesn't make himself to stay and try to force help out of a sense of, like, wounded pride, and trying to prove to them he can do this, or he's, as worthy or whatever. He's just like, yeah, no, that's not my bag. Yep. And I really like that. And then we have, my God, this conversation he has with Jon Snow.
He goes a little hard on Jon.
He really does, which I was like, but why? I thought y'all were like, what? Why? Where's all this coming from? I don't know where it was coming from. It just seemed, and then it ends in such a way that it's, like, very good-natured by the end. Mm-hmm. But it was just this kind of weird flex.
It feels like Tyrion does that thing where I think that Tyrion reacts to most people as if they are sort of behaving superior to him when that might not even be what's happening. But he's so used to that he gets a little bit over defensive out of the gate. So I think like Jon talking to him, it's like it should be just Jon's asking, what are you reading? Why are you reading this? Yada, yada, yada. And instead, it's, so, let's see. What are you reading about? Dragons, what good is that? There are no more dragons. And he talks about, earlier there's like, from his perspective, the memories of him going into the cellars of the castle.
Yes, to go
the
see them. Mm-hmm.
And this is where he tells Jon that he used to fantasize about having a dragon. Sometimes I'd imagine my father burning, at other times my sister. And Jon is looking at him like, holy shit. And Tyrion has a similar reaction that Robert has to Ned, where he says, come on, I know you've dreamt the same things.
Right.
And Jon says, no, I wouldn't. And I believe him.
I believe him too.
But Tyrion is like, really wants Jon to be as angry as him.
Yeah.
And it's not there, so he's just then goes in trying to get the anger out of Jon that he thinks is there. And it is there, but it's directed in a totally different way to Tyrion's. So Tyrion doesn't understand it.
I think that's a really interesting point about how the anger is there, but it is not, it doesn't exist and live the way that Tyrion expects it to. So he can't like get to it through these channels. And also I think there's a moment where Tyrion feels a little caught off guard by Jon's reaction to what he's reading, because they had that moment at Winterfell where it felt like they kind of connected. So it feels like almost like Tyrion is almost like, oh, why are you being like that? That's how you're going to be? Oh, okay.
Right.
Like he expected something a little bit different from Jon. Like they had, like when you talk about how he thought that Jon was going to feel the same way, it's almost because they had this prior moment together, and he thought that they were similar.
Right.
And were experiencing like the world with the same sort of like, resentment. And Tyrion feels kind of called out when Jon doesn't express it. Like, oh, you think you're better than me?
Yeah.
And so then that triggers him to just be like hurtful, to lash out. But what he didn't know was Ghost was not going to be playing those games.
Ooh, Ghost gets aggressive.
Listen, guys, can I tell? I know I said this already, and I don't want to keep saying it every time, but there's a really good chance I might, so just get used to it. I fucking love this, because we get it in the next chapter too with Catelyn, with these direwolves just somehow knowing what their people need them to do. And being so in tune with them, right? It's just really, really cool. And because the thing is, Tyrion was not physically threatening Jon.
No.
In any capacity. There is no reason for, like, if you want to be like, oh, it's just like it's reacting the way like a regular German Shepherd would. It was guiding your house or guarding your house. It's not, because there was no real threat, physical. But there was Tyrion making Jon feel bad.
Yeah.
And upsetting him.
Don't we all wish we had a ghost that could just take somebody out for being a
Listen, right? Like, yeah, having somebody protect you from physical harm is nothing to sneeze at. But let me have somebody who's like, oh, you making my girl feel bad? Mm-mm. No, we're not doing that. I was so here for it. Yep. I was so here for it. He puts him right on his ass.
Oh my god. And I do like that he doesn't take it any further. He just knocks him down. He's just like, I'm here and you need to remember that. I am right the fuck here.
He said, sit your punk ass down. And that's exactly what he made him do.
Yep.
And it's just fantastic. I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for hopefully getting all the great stuff I imagine might be possible to get. So, yeah, I'm super excited about this. So, yeah, but then what were they talking about? Because when this whole tense moment kind of ends, they make a joke. Something like, maybe he thought you were...
A grumpkin.
Yeah.
Because he's making fun of the work the Night's Watch does in general. And says you're just going to be up there looking for snarks and grumpkins and nothing will be even happening.
Right.
And just, he's belittling every single aspect of what John's doing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And then he's like, maybe he thought you were a grumpkin. Mm-hmm. And Tyrion finds that he has to laugh in spite of himself.
Yeah, he just bursts out giggling like he can't help it because it's just pretty good.
and you know what? This is the kind of thing that makes you go from being like, Jesus Christ, Tyrion, you're being a dick. So then, like, a moment later being like, oh, okay, maybe you're not that bad.
Yeah, he has this resentment that you can't really have it without it leaking out sometimes. Like, that's going to happen. And I appreciate that this is something, again, compared to the show. The show, I think, made him a lot more, like, dryly observant with his resentment in a way that it was always productive for him in some way. And that's not how it works. It can bite you in ways that you didn't really see coming. And I really like the fact that Martin has Tyrion just be an asshole sometimes. That's just how it works occasionally. He's just not 100% in control of his shit.
Right. Which is fine as a character because most aren't, you know. There's and if you think about what we've been told about Tyrion so far in the story, which is basically just that, you know, he was a huge disappointment to his entire family and that he low-key killed his mother. And that his family hates him. His brother, you know, maybe has affection for him. His sister loathes him and his father loathes him. And he has an incredible amount of privilege and power when it comes to how he moves through the world, but it is still tainted, you know?
Yeah.
Like here's the thing. He can force his way into this traveling party, but he can't force them to pretend like they respect him. His power doesn't you know, transcend that. And I imagine it is, you know, has a lot to do with his physical stature. He's not considered, you know, like Jaime. Say Jaime forces himself on this trip, right? They don't like it. They begrudge him for being there. But nobody is going to, like, just straight up be disrespectful to him.
Right.
Because they don't want that fucking action they know Jaime can bring. Tyrion doesn't have any of that. So he can be disrespected. We saw how the Hound treated him. You know, so... And I feel like, again, not to just keep badgering the show... But I feel like that was, I don't want to say missed, because they made sure to make some of it very, very apparent. But I think how Tyrion would carry that wasn't fully expressed in the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what a lifetime of that would really do to a person. And I think a lifetime of that would make a person very bitter.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the whole problem with trying to make a show with these characters. It's really hard to let somebody be complicated when you are boiling down a story this huge into the short periods that we see Tyrion on screen and get across who he really... It's just not possible. Yeah.
It's, you know... Again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't watch 8 seasons of this show and watch the fuck out of it, because I surely did. But I am ready to get a bit of a fuller experience of the story.
Yeah.
You know? So they have a good laugh and a chuckle. And that's pretty much how that chapter ends. And then we get the Catelyn chapter.
Yeah.
Listen. This shit was intense, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie. Because my memory is so sketchy and dodgy, I never know 100% where I am in the story, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize we were at the attack Bran moment until that shit was happening. I was like, oh shit, it's happening, it's going down. We find that she has been by his bedside nonstop. She didn't even leave to say goodbye to the family. Mm-hmm. And Rob is kind of trying to be like shitty about it. Not shitty, but he's just kind of being like, you need a break, you need rest. You didn't even come out to say goodbye to father and the girls.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I said my goodbyes here. And I watched him from the window. My part was done. And this is where I'm supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And she's so sick with grief and lack of sleep that she's kind of like not even herself.
Yeah.
And it is in this state that she is when the attack comes. Rob is in there, trying to talk to her about, is this when they're talking about, like, things they need to do to run Winterfell? Or is that after the fire?
No, well, first, Rob isn't even there, and she's just talking to the maester, and he's trying to get her to assign a new master of horse. And she basically looks at him like, are you really fucking talking to me about this shit right now?
Yes,
and
that's what it is.
He's basically like, yes.
Yeah, who else am I going to talk to?
There are still people living here. I don't really know what to tell you.
Right. And Rob comes later in this moment, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's there when they notice the fire outside because of the dogs.
Right.
So it's Rob and the maester. Is anyone else there?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. And she is just like receiving this information from them, and they want her to take a break. They want her to rest. They want her to be more engaged in the running of the fucking castle because nobody has been in charge of anything really. Mm-hmm. Which I mean, I guess Rob isn't officially. She says later in this chapter, when everything is said and done, that Rob is like who's in charge.
Right.
But up until that point, she was supposed to be in charge. And she has just not been doing anything.
It's sort of weird because, like, you say she was supposed to be who is in charge. And I think that's, like, actually practically true. But I think de facto, Rob was supposed to be because he's the heir.
Well, that's what my assumption was too. But when the maester comes in talking about horses, I'm like, that's some shit Rob could talk about. What are you doing in here?
I guess it's supposed to be like they don't know that Rob can handle it, and they are waiting until like somebody officially makes the call. But I just don't really see why like we can't.
Just have assumed that he would be in charge. I will say that, and again, we're skipping like the big action of the chapter, but real quick. I will say that she notices that later on that Rob is like has steel now. Mm-hmm. He's not walking around with a wooden sword, and she remarks on that like, "Oh, we've made because this is a big deal. This signifies a change in his status."
Right.
So I guess what's happening is that he is still sort of considered a child, and by the time this chapter is over, it's made much more clear that he is actually the Lord of Winterfell. And is who's going to be running the show there. But before that happens, they are in the bedroom. She is sick with grief. The fucking Bran's wolf is still doing the howling, which has got to be just driving everybody bananas. Because it sounds like he never stops.
Yeah.
And then they notice that it's actually dogs are going like nuts too. And that's when they realize that there's a fire in the library, which broke my heart.
Right? I know.
Broke my heart. I mean, Tyrion just got done telling us how much shit they had in there that wasn't anywhere else in the world, and now it's on fire, and I was so upset by it.
Yeah. Yep, same.
Yeah, so the men go rushing off, and she stays in her room with Bran, and some strange, sneaky man shows up. And he seems to be, I don't know, like, something suggested he's, I don't want to use any, like, gross language around what I'm trying to say about this particular character, but he comes in, and the way he keeps repeating that, you know, she's not supposed to be here, and it's as if he's unable to really think of anything else to say, or to adjust to the changing, you know, situation. And she kind of just remarks that he doesn't seem to be able to do much of anything except say over and over that she's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And he holds a knife to her throat. And again, reading, I was not ready for this to happen just yet. So I was just like, oh, this motherfucker got a big ass knife to her throat in her baby's room, like right in front of her child. And she is struggling against him and holding the knife so hard that it cuts like down to the bone, we find out. And she is holding him off with all of her strength, and you don't know how much longer she's going to be able to do that, you know? And just when you think, like, this is it, here comes Bran's fucking wolf.
I love this so much.
I can't even get into how did he get up there that fast. How did he know which room to go to? The how of any of it, you know? There's no explanation for it. It just is.
Yep.
And he comes in and tackles this dude and rips out his fucking throat.
Yeah.
And I
Cheered.
was a huge fan of it. I did cheer a little bit. It was very satisfying.
I don't recall. Is this how it happens in the show?
I also don't recall. I think so. I think this is. I think maybe in the show, maybe the wolf was already in the room. I don't remember, because when this is all said and done, one of the things that she says, Catelyn says, you know, that the wolf should stay in the room with Bran, which feels like a big deal. You know, it feels like that's really important. And I don't remember if that was in the show or if that was really made clear that this was an important moment. Because we know that the dog has been outside howling all this time, and no one has been able to get it to stop, but also no one has thought that, like, maybe he just wants to come be with his boy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Catelyn strikes me as someone who would have been like, no, he has to stay outside. But I don't think we ever actually see or hear her say that.
I could see her not wanting it inside because
it just seems
so isolating herself that them being around feels like she wouldn't want that.
Yeah, it feels like also that she would just be like, no, they can't come in the house. Period. Like, because the thing is, they have a bunch of dogs at Winterfell, but they're kenneled. You know, they're not like house pets.
True.
So I feel like she would be like, yeah, no, we're not a family that has, you know, animals in our house. So her allowing it to come in is a great, it feels like a great honor, even though it's a weird thing to say in relation to an animal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I
But it just kind of feels that way. So after the attack, you know, eventually Robb and some guards show up. By then, you know, she is just on the floor covered in blood, like laughing like a maniac. And
she's a mess.
She is a mess. And they, you know, take her and treat her and clean her, and she rests for a couple of days, and then the story picks back up about 4 days later after she's been asleep. And this is when she decides to share the note she got from Lysa.
Yeah. I had forgotten that she brings them in on all of this information.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. She tells Robb Greyjoy is there. Maybe the Maester is there. Maester. Mm-hmm. The Maester is there. And maybe the other guy. Maybe one of the lords.
I think Sir Roderick.
Maybe, yeah. I feel like,
Yeah.
So I'm reading this. And I'm like, bitch, you're telling the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And again, I'm not even going to go to the show anymore because I can't remember how this part played out on the show. But in the book here, she is taking this very, very sensitive information and sharing it with teenagers. First of all, let's just everybody remember that Robb is like 16 and Theon is maybe close to the same age, 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need you, ma'am, to rethink that. And just, I don't know. It's not that I have any reason to not trust the people that she has in this room. But as I was reading it, all I could think was, oh, this is not what you do with really sensitive information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she did it. And she tells them that she suspects that... Well, first she tells them that the killer was there to get Bran, which nobody had a way of knowing. So everybody's assumption was that he was after her,
right.
Which would make more sense, because why would anybody want to kill Bran? And she tells Robb to think about that for a minute, which I laughed at that.
He's just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. He's just a little boy. And she looks at him like, all right, look, I'm going to just give you a second to catch up because clearly your brain is not functioning the way I need it to function. So let's take this to the next level, please. Thank you.
It really was. She's like, I'm going to let you sit with that for a minute, and then I'm going to make my way back around to you. So she shares her suspicions that not only was this killer after Bran, but also most likely because he knows something that they don't want him to repeat, and that the Lannisters are probably behind it. Mm-hmm. And I think the Lannisters get implicated because of the quality of the knife that the killer was using.
Yeah, I think that rings a bell.
I know that it was a really good, it was a Valyrian steel knife, which they were all just like, no regular dude's going to have one of these. I can't remember what else made her think that, I don't remember what else made her leap to Lannisters, but she does end up there.
Yeah, it's just sort of, it seems like the fact that it's something treacherous, and they've already been implicated in something else treacherous.
Right.
That she's just like, yeah, that's good enough. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think you're right. That does seem like the logical leap, right?
Yeah.
If they are the ones who killed Jon Arryn, then they could do anything. Mm-hmm. And even if we don't understand the why of it, it doesn't mean that we don't believe they could do it.
Yeah. So
she decides that someone needs to get to King's Landing to warn Ned, I think. Is she going to warn Ned? Because there's this whole conversation about how they can get there quicker than him. They can catch up and get there by the time he gets there.
I believe so, yeah. I'm trying to find the spot where this conversation happens.
Because there's a whole conversation about, who she should travel with.
I forgot that
Robb
first of all, pulls his sword. And Sir Roderick is like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh my God, right. Put that back. You're in your mom's bedroom for crying out loud.
Let's see.
There's also a moment where Theon does something very similar, I'll kill anybody who threatens your family because I love you all so much and you've been so good to me. And you just read and this motherfucker is so full of shit. He's not loyal to nobody.
Oh, here it is. Okay, we must have proof or keep forever silent. Your proof is in the dagger, Sir Roderick said. A fine blade like that will not have gone unnoticed. There was only one place to find the truth of it, Catelyn realized. Someone must go to King's Landing. So she's about to do, King's Landing CSI.
Yeah.
What the hell was that? It sounded like a truck drove into your house.
It was darn close.
Good God.
Darn close.
And that is apparently, like, she wants to just go investigate. It's not even, I mean, partially, I'm sure, about warning Ned.
But she doesn't say explicitly that.
And I feel like Ned is aware of the danger, and I think she knows that too. Like, it's not even that in terms of warning him of what? That to watch his back and that they did this thing? Like, that's why he knows that already. Okay.
All right, so she just wants to get down there because that's where the truth is. Mm-hmm. That's where she's going to find the truth. And there's a conversation about who should actually do it. And then they circle back around to decide she's the one. Robb offers to go, and as she's telling him no, he has to stay behind and, like, run Winterfell.
Right.
And I think she thinks about, I think Theon, that's when he offers to go with her and protect her. She decides she's going to make the trip. I cannot remember who all she says will come with her.
Let me look. I have it up here.
I want to think. I think
I won't be taking the King's Road. 2 riders can move as fast as 1. I will welcome your company, Sir Roderick. We will follow the White Knife down to the sea and hire a ship at White Harbor. Okay. So that is the plan.
So it's just going to be her and him traveling.
Mm-hmm. Because she doesn't want the Lannisters catching on to the fact that she's coming down.
Right. So I know that this goes left on the show pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I cannot remember how she ends up anywhere, quite frankly. Like, I know from the show that at one point she ends up at the Eyrie. But I don't remember, like, the timeline of that. Is that, you know, I know that there's a confrontation. Wait. Yeah, see, I'm getting it's all jumbled. Mm-hmm. I know something happened, like, on the show, on the way, they are at a tavern or something, and I think that's when somebody claims to know that the knife is a Lannister knife for a fact on the show.
I'm not reminding you of shit, so.
I can't remember. So I don't know what this next leg of the book is and this journey she takes. I can't remember much of anything about it. So it will be, you know, surprising to me when I read it.
Indeed. All right. Well, I'm excited because now shit's happening, man. And at the end of this, we are at page 133 of 802, 17% of the way along in this story so far, according to Kindle.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I am very, very, very excited because we're going to King's Landing, and there's going to be lots of double dealing and backstabbing and meeting of new characters, I think, and trying to figure out who knows what and who can be trusted. We're going to get to King's Landing, which means I'm going to get to meet Ferris. I am going to get to meet Peter Baelish, and I can't wait to meet those book characters and see what they're like compared to the show. So I'm excited.
Yay! I am really pleased at how much more fun it is to revisit this world than I was, like, kind of expecting.
Oh, hooray!
You know, I'm not trying to say that I was walking into this, like, with dread, because that wasn't it either. But I was kind of like, all right, here we go. Like, I was mentally sort of prepping myself in a way that I expected it to. And granted, it's early days. You know, we're 3 episodes in. It's
right.
But I am having more fun with it than I kind of thought I would, or was like allowing myself to think I would.
Oh, good.
And that's always a nice feeling.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it too. I think we've talked about this a lot, but I really think that because the show is not like a burning spotlight anymore, there's more room to kind of just engage with the stories without feeling like, you know, a million people were going to, like, jump on you for not liking a thing or whatever. And I don't know if anybody has been listening to these or not. I don't know what kind of reaction you've seen, if any.
People, current Unspoiled listeners are very excited for us to get back to this. I don't know about people who haven't been listening to other Unspoiled shows or people who listen to the first show and that's it. But
right. And it's just going to be a weird, not weird, but like this is going to be a free show. It is a free show. So people outside of our little family, can listen to it. And I hope that they enjoy it and enjoy it enough to join our little family. Because for good or for bad, the TV show was a huge part of my life and changed so much of my life. And I've been wanting to read these books for a very long time. And I'm just super stoked that we get to do that finally.
Same.
So I hope people enjoy it.
And now I don't have to be like, well, in the books, because you'll be the one doing that soon. All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for listening. And let us know, where you are in terms of your listenership in regard to Unspoiled and like the original show and stuff and what you think. Because I'm curious. I have had some people like get in touch and be like, I am re-listening to the first show and I am definitely enjoying it, but you are so much more polished in the way that you like approach the material now. And it's so funny because like I'm not trying to be, but I guess that just happens when you know how to like direct a conversation a little bit better and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing what you do for a couple of years now, and you're becoming, the more you do a thing, the better you become at it. And this is like you're a professional podcaster. So if you haven't improved,
it's
then it'd
like,
be like, well.
When I think about improving, I keep thinking about like my viewpoints on things, but not practical, like how to do a show stuff.
Oh, yeah, I think you often underestimate your part of any of the shows that you do.
It's weird because I do underestimate like skills that it needs to be able to do something, and then I'll listen to like other unprofessionally done shows, amateur, that's the word I want, shows, and I'm just like, oh my god, what are they doing? So I'm like real critical a lot of times about the way shows are done, but I don't associate the fact that I don't like what they're doing with the fact that maybe they just don't have a certain skill. Mm-hmm. I sort of am like, well, I'm kind of a bitch and I don't like a lot of people. So I guess that's what it is. And then I just move on. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a little from column A and a little from column B.
I love when I said that, Rashawn's like, well, look, I'm not going to like say that's not true. We'll keep that in mind also. I'm just saying that's not everything. Fair. Anywho. All right, guys. Well, thank you all again so much for listening, and hope you've been enjoying it. And we will see you next week with a new... Or no, I'm lying. I'm taking a vacation for my birthday, but we'll be seeing you a week after next week with a new episode. And everybody wish me a happy birthday vacation, because I'm going to take a whole week, and it's going to be exciting, and I'm going to make cookies, and I'm so happy.
Yay! Birthday week.
Birthday week. All right, guys. See you in 2 weeks. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.